Welcome to another conversation around culture. So here I am live, usually live on a Sunday or Monday evening, and having these conversations with fascinating guests. Each week I have a different guest, and they shed more light and insight into our ways of living because we are in a very multicultural world, society, communities that we work in. So it's wonderful to hear different perspectives. So, a bit about me, a quick intro. I'm Munwara Ali, and I am a leadership consultant, coach, and mentor. Now, you might say leadership covers a lot of things, but most importantly, my roles. I am a chief exec of a small charity in East London, a job that I absolutely love. And apart from that, I also deliver a leadership program where I am hugely passionate to support women to increase their leadership capacity and support growth within communities, building communities, developing communities. And some of that means working with international communities. So I do a bit of international development work with Stowe Inspire. I've got a wonderful guest today. That's enough of me, and I'm going to bring her in and she will introduce herself. Thank you for joining us and stay with us. Please share any comments or questions you have. Guler? Hey.
Hi. Hi, Mamwara. And suddenly I appear on the screen. Magic.
Welcome.
Magic. Well, very glad you introduced me and asked me to come along to Culture Conversations. It's an interesting topic. So, who am I? I'm sure everyone has seen me around. Guler, Cortis, Guler sorts it. I'm an online business manager, and I'm really passionate about helping, especially creative entrepreneurs. And there's many of us out there, and we need occasionally a bit of support at the back end of your office. So that's why I'm here. So any help I can provide you in administration or coaching into a certain direction, change a process, or maybe manage a team, a new project or event you've got coming up. Anything is possible. Kule sorts it. Yes, that's me, Mawara.
Excellent. Thank you, Gula, for this. I think you don't sing enough of your own praises. Gula does more than just sorts it. Gula leads it. She may be behind the scenes, but I've worked with her, and I can tell you that she has the most amazing interpersonal skills and is able to work with anybody. And I can vouch for that. So, and this is why I'm so excited for us to have this conversation, because I know that you have such an interesting perspective. We've worked together before, and you've really given us in that project, you gave us that safety net, that psychological safety where we all felt like she'll look after us. So I think there's a big deal in that. But I see our friend Matt has just joined us. Hello, Matt. You are the miracle.
You are the miracle, Matt. Welcome, welcome. That's really nice of Matt to pop in. And yes, going back to our project, of course, the big one was climbing Ben Nevis. That was very exciting. And what was so nice was, remember the time that me, you, and Kate just got together, because the three of us came forward to say, okay, let's do it. And then jointly new ideas just popped up. And of course, everybody raised their hand of what responsibility we would take on, which really helps, especially working within a team and just getting together, know your responsibility, and then let's crack on. And I think it's important also to, of course, see your vision. And I clearly saw your vision. I could see Kate's vision, and I could see my vision. Because my vision was really like, I wanted to get as many people on board as possible, and to be able to deliver your vision of really focusing only on one small charity and helping just one family, because it's so easy to want to help everyone in the world, but it's not possible.
Mm.
And not as yet. It will come, but not as yet. And then at the same time, we had Kate's vision of health and keeping ourselves maintained and trained. Because I remember the last 2 months after I've broken my hip, of course, I was training really hard as I could. I mean, of course, I couldn't succeed Kate's 10,000 steps a day, but we both did really well, and we got up that mountain. That was important, and the most important thing, we raised that money for Beauty and her
Her
daughter.
daughters.
That was just so beautiful. That was just exciting.
And it wasn't the only thing that those funds achieved, because we also had some leftover money and we contributed towards another mother and daughter's home.
Yeah,
So that was like way beyond our expectations. But that just goes to show, isn't it? You intentions and what you want to achieve sometimes, I mean, I'm a firm believer, you always exceed. If you have good intentions, you will always exceed. You might have wanted to make a difference in one person's life, but look, we ended up making a difference to everybody.
that's it. And it's also, you made the difference to people in the group as well who came and joined us. If I had not signed up my big friend, she wouldn't be where she is again today. She was just, you know, it's so nice to see them smile and having achieved something. And again, with Matt being online, you are the miracle. It's all about giving to each other, and helping each other. And sometimes it doesn't have to involve cash, and know how you can help each other by supporting either emotionally or physically. It doesn't matter. It is all just about giving. And giving is, if we're going to talk about culture, giving is, of course, in every culture. That's something,
Absolutely.
there's just, you know, there's no difference in any culture how we perceive giving. Giving is giving.
Giving is what you do all the time, Gula. It's like, isn't it interesting how, like, and this is the thing in the business world, I'm always meeting people that actually where most of their time and energy goes is in the thing that they don't get paid to do, and it's what gives them joy and really like lights them up. But then you have a paid job which doesn't really light you up, and but you need to have the money coming in, so it's that itself is quite a big challenge. And the reason why I'm doing these culture conversations is because i would I would love for companies to hear some of these conversations and realize, actually, we could make changes. Leaders at their level could easily have a huge impact in changing the culture of an organization and say, you know what, I'm going to focus on what makes my staff, come alive.
Yeah,
What is it that my team members, what is it that they gives them joy? Because if you do that, then you get 110% from staff.
yeah, even more than that. Definitely, definitely. But that is, I mean, I do see it coming now, and I'm glad we see it coming, because there's a lot of companies really doing lots and lots more. If I go back to 30 years ago, the change is so tremendous. And that's not just in diversity, equity, and that's not just in that. They are doing a lot more, but there is still a lot more that can be done. And it's that, I think it's the focus on giving the time for a creative person within the company to be creative. Because say if you're a designer and you work for a company, you're expected to do the task because the client wants, the client wants. But eventually you become empty. And if you then don't get maybe even 2 hours or a day a week to refuel yourself,
Mm.
that's when people are going to start saying, I've had enough, I'm bored, I want to do something else. So if you as a company can encourage people, especially people who are keen as well, because that and of course you want to help others as well, but there are sometimes people who just don't want to learn more. They're just happy with what they're doing, and you've got to understand that if you can't take them any further, then you've got to accept that as well. Yeah. But the ones who are keen, but in my time of corporate world, I just could see that even just a day out of the office to refuel as a designer, even just in nature, or
Mm.
go to an exhibition. I know they do exhibitions, but then there's sometimes only twice a year. Is that really enough?
Mm.
Yeah. So companies expect staff to refuel themselves, but if there's not enough time in the day, that's when they're not going to be so happy. But again, it depends on each person. I mean, I look at myself, I refuel myself by talking to a lot of different people, and people fuel me. People fuel me because just by talking to people and being interested in people and wanting to hear their stories and wanting to hear where they've been and where they want to go, that fuels you.
Mm.
And that gives again insight into your own skills as well, on how you can perfect your way of working and you modify it. I used to walk into the office with bright colors, of course, and and people go, "Why are you always smiling?" And it's like, well, that's my name, because it starts with. It's a really difficult one, because sometimes I get confused with, because the way I am so ridiculously overly positive and optimistic, and always feel like there is good out there, and I know there is good out there, because I feel you can't close it. I don't like closing myself off.
Mm.
I had a big expense to come out the other day, and I'm like, oh my god, where you then start balancing out, yes, no, and I said, go on then. And literally, I think, you know what? It will come back. And literally, within 24 hours, it came back. It was like, wow, okay.
I am with you 100% on that optimism thing. I think I irritated my children for a very long time because they would always say, "Mum, you're telling me something serious. Why are you smiling?" And I just can't help it. And it took me a long time to figure this out about myself. And as they say, like, you increase your own self-awareness, you're better able to manage other people.
Yeah.
I also understood why I missed out on promotion opportunities because of my being over optimistic sometimes.
Hmm.
But one thing I remember, and it's something that Matt has said about smiling. Growing up, I was always led to believe, from a spiritual perspective, that charity is something as simple as smiling,
Yeah.
because you don't know how bad a person's time, their life, what's going on. And sometimes it's that little smile, which you might say, people might think is just nothing. It makes the world of difference to somebody else. We just don't know. And it's that thing about, he says, giving is a way of life. I've always tried to advocate that. When I believe I've been in work environments where people have tried to fix me because they felt that, okay, there's something wrong with this person. And I have worked it out why. Because when you are surrounded by people, you don't understand dynamics,
Yeah.
and you have someone who is completely the opposite to you,
Hmm.
what you may feel is a strength in you, the other person sees a negative in you because they're the opposite. So they're thinking, how can I help this person to change?
But then you step out of it. I
Well, one day you grow up. So
you
one day I grew up and I realized, you know
get
what? It's my strength.
yeah,
People, I might be the only one in the world who's like this, but I'm happy to be different than to be the same as everyone else.
yeah. It's true. And gosh, I remember times when I was young and I was always smiling. I can't help it. That's maybe it was something I was nervous about, or if you go think about it, you know, now, especially this year when I went to Turkey in was it October? When I was in Turkey, I suddenly realized maybe why I was always smiling. and, and I must have been such a nervous wreck. Maybe I was a totally anxious little girl. Because don't forget, I was taken away from my mum, well, at the age of 5.
Hmm.
And I was brought to Holland to live with my Dutch mother and my father. And maybe something had happened. I've never really thought about it because I don't stand still and think about it too much because it's the past, and it's, you know, you learn, and every day and every time the little puzzle gets bigger. But that's probably why I was smiling. But it's not bad, because it turned me into a wonderful person, a giving person. But I do remember at the age of 12, or no, say 16, I was 16, people have taken disadvantage of the smile, and that's a bit naughty.
Hmm.
That is the naughty part. But again, being a strong individual, I very much can handle that, and I've handled that very carefully. Um, so yes, so it's always been there in my culture to smile, the same as, you know, in your culture as well. But my culture is Turkish, as you know, and I know you love hearing more about it. And when I, you know, it's taken me a long time to slowly see what I was as a child, because I haven't heard a lot, and I've only recently have found out that my Turkish mom, who's still alive, and I'm lucky to have a second mother because my first mom died. Um, I'm slowly getting to understand what what I was like at a younger age. Because I don't speak the language, you can't directly speak about it. So having now met the family on her side, there's a massive big family out there. And I might have told you already, but I have spoken to other people. I'm planning to move to Turkey for 3 months to learn the language. Because again, you know, life is short, and why not spend 3 months in Kayseri, in the in the part of where I was born, and start learning the language, go there on my own, so you're not depending on people who can speak the language, and hopefully be able to ask a question directly to my mother. So to find out a bit more.
It's wonderful. I just love how you're embracing all of that. You know, it is wonderful. I will say, with my philosophy hat on, the truth, the fault lies in our stars, because not only is our culture, our identity. I feel, for me, my cultural identity is more than just being Asian and Muslim. Like you, when I reflected back, I think a few years back, I did some investigation. I went back to my childhood and I spoke to my cousin who had a huge influence on my childhood, like the early first, I would say, 4 years of my life. She was like a mother figure to us. And what was really fascinating was that she said, I was only as young as 3 or something. And whenever we would have someone, like, in Bangladesh, like someone begging, going past, I would run inside and fill it up with stuff and give it away. So she said, you were always like this from the age of 3, or as far as she could remember.
Wow.
And I was like, really? Had no idea.
Yeah.
But it's really fascinating when you dig deep, and
With
then you begin to realize why you are the way you are.
hmm,
And this is culture related, because I think it's important for our audience, people that are listening, to understand that, if you are running a big company, running a charity or whatever business, you may make that assumption that everybody from the Asian background or everybody from the Turkish background, we get put into boxes.
yeah,
But actually, we are unique individuals, and this is how I lead. As a leader, as someone who manages a team of 10, um, this is how I lead. I think of every individual as an individual. No
yes,
two Muslims are the same to me.
no, never, never. And again, because of course I've been brought up in two cultures,
Mm,
Turkish and Dutch. So I've I mean, I know about the Turkish culture, but I personally never really felt anything towards it because, of course, um, I don't believe in the things they believe. So you've got to really like think
mm,
of that. And often, even my children still say, "Mum, why don't you say you're Turkish?" And I say, "But I can't. I'm not Turkish. I'm Guler. I am me." And
mm,
and because I was born there doesn't mean I am.
mm,
Because I need to. If it, the thing is, we all, like you just said, we all want to fit in a box, but really, the ultimate thing is stay out of the box, so that you can look in every box and you can relate to every box. That's to me much more important. To be cooler, I don't need to be Turkish. To be cooler, I don't need to be Dutch.
mm,
Um, so it has taken me probably 60 years to see the beauty of Turkey.
mm, mm,
As a child, I've never looked at it that way because you mustn't forget when we arrived at 5 years. I was only 5 in Holland, and I can only assume I could only speak Turkish. Of course, I went straight to school, so I started speaking Dutch. We were taken to Turkey on holidays, um, but you never saw the country as what it was. Because
mm,
as a child, you just go from one country through Europe, drive, 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 and of course, it was always during one of my birthdays. It was during one of my birthdays. So me being upset because I could never have a birthday party because we were always going to Turkey on my birthday.
mm,
And I never really appreciated the country. I appreciated, of course, the family and the lovely food, of course, the lovely weddings we used to go. I appreciated all that, but the country itself, I never really seen the beauty until recently. I was on the mountain hill where I was born, that village, and that's already probably nearly 2,000 above sea level, and the colossal mountains around us. And I'm like, why did I not see them the last time I was here?
It's amazing how you've had that calling. And
Yeah,
isn't it fascinating? We were both born on mountains.
I know. I know. And I never ever thought about it, never saw it, and never saw the beauty of it. But then I thought, okay, the last time I was there in 1994, I was on a mission. I was
Mm,
on a mission. I wanted to know when I was born. I was so determined to find out when I was born. So I went on a holiday to Fethiye. Come back.
Just where I came back from.
Yeah. In 1994, I went to Fethiye and I stayed with my Dutch mum because she was living in Fethiye at the time. Although she divorced my father, she always had a love for Turkey. So she remained in Fethiye. We stayed with her, and then I was going to take a bus from Fethiye all the way to the mountains where I was born. Cappadocia, through Cappadocia to Kayseri. Kayseri is the big city, of course. And 15 hours on a bus, that's quite a lot. And I remember nobody knew I was coming. I was with my ex-husband at the time. And I had asked my father, I said, okay, what do I do? Where do I go? And my father said, okay, just take a bus, get to Kayseri, and then you get a bus to Tomaza, the little village where my mum was living. And I said, okay. I said, but he said, on the bus, or he said, just ask for Ibrahim Kalahalijic. Excuse me for this. So all I had was Ibrahim Kalajik. All I knew is that he was an uncle married to my auntie, the sister of my father. And on the bus, we got to Kayseri, then on the bus to Tomarza, and that was about an hour drive. And on the bus, all I was saying, Ibrahim Kalajik, Ibrahim Kalajik. Don't forget, I don't speak Turkish. and in that time, 94, I was just dressed in a little vest and some comfy loose trousers, knee high, which is not too bad, but anyway, I'm on that bus going there, and people in the bus said, yeah, okay, wait, it's fine. It's like, okay. And then we got out of the bus and they said, wait here. And there's a person walking towards me, 5 minutes later. And it was like I was staring at the face of my brother. I thought, oh my God, what's my brother doing here? But it wasn't my brother. It was the brother of my mum. And then we were taken to his office, and then he then organized and talked to everyone. And then everybody was at my mum. And then we were taken to my mum within the next half hour. And don't forget, I had not seen my mum for a good 30 years. And and all I remember was, because she was that missing bit of the puzzle as well of who I am as a person and why I'm always so jolly and happy. And again, she was just all smiles. And all she did was, when I arrived, she let me sit down and opened this big album of photos. And she had all these photos of me and my brothers from when we were younger to up to the point now. And I never knew about that. And it was so lovely to see. And she was so such a beautiful, caring soul. She didn't ask for anything. And you could see that. For a woman who has been, sitting there without her kids and then been moved on to marry another man and have more kids, there was no anger on her. And there was a lot of anger going on when I was looking at my auntie, because my auntie was really angry. And because I can't understand them, you can only see from their expressions of why they're angry. But my mum was just so acceptant.
Why was the aunt angry?
I think she was probably angry because, of course, my father had left, or he hadn't come, or I don't know. And it's like, it's fair enough. But I suppose when you see someone you haven't seen for a while, you try to communicate with them and be happy with them and show where you are today. Because why would we need to talk about the past? Because we can't make things better. And as I've said before, I mean, even when I met my mum, you can't make up that missed time. you can take it only forward from the moment you meet each other.
Some people need it for healing. Some people only need to go back to their past for the healing, but
Yeah.
that's just what I believe. But otherwise, I agree with you 100%. You can't change the past, can you?
No, no, you can't. And yeah, you are really catching on the healing. And I suppose long time ago, I've always been into self-development, always probably from the age of 20. I knocked on the doctor's door and said, I need some help. and you know, it's very brave to say that, because it's just when you feel yourself you're going downwards, then you just need that little help to get back up again. And the healing probably for me came through a course I did. I did a course where it was really concentrating on letting go, forgiveness and letting go. And yes, that really helped me to forgive, because you can't blame your parents on, you know, you not having achieved XYZ. And I was looking at my Turkish mum differently, and I was looking at my Dutch mum differently. So I had to really like come to terms and forgive. And I think that is the biggest way of, you know, healing what has happened in the past.
For forgiving our others, but also forgiving ourselves sometimes.
So,
It's very interesting, and I think I'm looking at thinking about who you are. And one of the things I always talk about in leadership is around cultural identity and understanding that cultural identity is very, very specific to individuals. You wouldn't be who you are today if you didn't have that mixed culture and that influence from both sides,
yeah.
maybe more from one than the other, but it's what's made you who you are. But can you imagine, like in any environment, how where they would put you? What box would you be put in?
What books?
Would you be a Turkish? Because when I first saw your name, the first time via like on LinkedIn, I thought, oh, she's Turkish. And then the more I got to know you, I saw more sides to you. And that's why, for me, I find people fascinating because, you know, the more you understand, the more you get to see and understand the uniqueness in an individual.
Yeah. But again, even if I was Turkish, that's the whole thing, isn't it? If you're going to stick me in a box, then you're going to make assumptions that I'll be some way, and I'm not. So I would never put myself in a Turkish box, and I wouldn't really. Of course, I would put myself in a Dutch box, because maybe because I was brought up there. But then I think, hold on, I could also be stuck in a British box, because I've lived in Britain so much longer than I've even spent in Holland or Turkey. So,
And
so
that's the point, because I have friends who are, you know, British Bangladeshi, and they will say to me that I'm more British than I am Bangladeshi. And you know, I grew up here, and when I go back to Bangladesh, I will get, you know, some people will say things like, oh, it's because she's had a British education, she expects everyone to be treated equally. Because in the village, I will always challenge. If somebody's treated badly, I will challenge it. Or if I feel that there's a, you know, sexism going on, or if I feel that a woman needs a bit of empowerment, I will go there and subtly do my thing. And I always get to pushback, as in, oh, but it's only because she's British, she's had a British education. But like, where here, I might apply for a role, and I know that the first thing they're thinking when they are meeting me or seeing me, their assumptions are, I'm Muslim
yeah,
because of the headscarf. I'm Muslim. How
but
many Muslim women have you met like me, Gula?
Like you.
Mm.
Well, there are like you, of course, never like you. Oh,
I was
but
testing you,
you're
testing you.
unique. But what I have seen, and which I really admire, there are some ladies who are married to one of my brothers in
Mm,
Turkey, and specifically one, she's really like, a, really like a fighting spirit, and you can see that she's really um, empowering and really showing the family and the kids where to go and encourage them for schooling. And so there is a difference within the bigger family, because remember, I don't know if I told you before, but my mother is quite fanatic in her belief, which I call fanatic. That's but I appreciate it. That's fine. It's not a problem, but it can be sometimes too heavy.
mm,
And but the beautiful thing is, now I see that some of her other sons and family members are more relaxed,
mm,
and they're seeing, they are a bit more relaxed. But then there's some who are, again, they have their own beliefs and want to be that way. It's
mm.
fine. But yeah, so you do, so some of them I can see they have that wonderful spirit like you have, and that their uniqueness, but they do need to be heard a bit more, but because they're still keeping themselves hidden, isn't it?
I think it's a common thing with women. I talk to friends of mine who are not Muslim. I have a Polish friend, and she says it's because there's certain expectations from women within their communities. And it's really interesting because I'm talking to a European person who you would assume would have grown up within a culture where women may have had a bit more freedom, but I realized that that's not true. But again, I made it that assumption beforehand, didn't I? But once you get to speak to people, and I say this to a lot of my community where sometimes people are not mixing, is that talk to people from other cultural backgrounds and you will realize that your problems and your issues are very, very similar, you
Well,
know.
that's it. But that's the whole thing. Any problems and issues are the same everywhere. Again, in every culture, because you are the problems. Me as a Muslim girl is no different than me as a Dutch girl,
Hmm.
or you as a Bangladesh. So we go through the same emotions. We still want to do the same things. We either we want to overachieve, or we want to do well, or give too much, or being stopped and held back. It happens everywhere. So that's not, I think it's more important that we free each individual person than the culture. And like you said, you've got to look into other cultures and see there is a difference. I mean, the funny story is the one, my father saw me. I was about 12 years old or 13 years old. I was cycling back from school to home, which is probably 10-minute cycle journey, with a boy of my class. We were both on the bike. I wasn't sitting at the back of his bike or the other way around. No, we were both cycling together because he was a neighbor. He lived literally a couple of doors away from us. We cycled together. My father sees me. He's driving and he sees me, and he's with my mum in the car. And he's like, screaming his head off in the car. And my mum is like, my Dutch mum, it's like, calm down, just gonna get pregnant cycling home. It's like, it's that those little things. It's like, if you, and it's great because of course I had my Dutch mother who was really could basically bring him back to earth and say, listen, it's fine, and that made it all much simpler. And it helped me not to be married out to someone.
It's what you just said just made me realize, like especially when you are in the family home, and parenting can be so challenging. Just thinking about my own example,
Mm.
only had this conversation with my children recently. We look at a different lens as parents, and we look at things with a different lens when we are ourselves in that situation. So like you said, sometimes the parents are the enemy, and then later we realize they were our heroes all along. We just didn't realize because we were so busy and stuck with our own issues. But it's interesting because I had this conversation with my children about culture.
Mhm.
And the usual assumption is, oh, because we're from a certain culture, you worry about, the girl traveling on her own. It's not that. I think for me, I was someone who traveled on my own at the age of 20, and I want my children to touch the stars if they can. There is no way I'm ever going to prevent them from achieving.
Mm.
However, I think we have to realize with everything that we see in the media, every single community initiative, that it's not safe for an 18-year-old to go to an uncommon place where perhaps, and as a parent, you will naturally worry. That doesn't mean I will stop. I may suggest, okay, how about like another friend or two of you traveling together? There's always solutions. But
Yes.
it's really interesting how immediately they will think that. And then we have a conversation like, yeah, mom, I know it's bad what happens because such and such, it happened to one of my friend. And then they go into, but that communication and that conversation is so important, because
It's
otherwise we ourselves can put our own children in boxes. Like you said, your dad's assumption.
yeah.
My husband, maybe years ago, would have been very similar, but like we have conversations.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me, like my son said, Mum, my friends asked me when I told them about something, right? So his friends asked him, how did your parents react? And he told them what I had said and what I had done. And they said, is your mum English? This is his like the boys in his college. So these were Asian friends. And they said, your mom English? And he said, no. And they said, well, if they all said what their parents would have done had the same situation happened. And like, because I feel like even my husband and I, like in terms of the parenting, it's not something no one, and this is the interesting part about leadership, no one teaches us how to be a parent. We've got to figure it out.
But isn't that beautiful? But you must believe in yourself,
Absolutely.
because mothers naturally will know what to do. But unfortunately, a lot of us have been put under fear that you might not know. And you must read this book or you must listen to this. No, the stronger you are in yourself, you will know what's right and what's wrong. You can make those decisions. And again, the being a parent is, like you say, because there's so many different ways to look at parenting, but you need to choose what's right for you and your family and your kids, because again, every individual is different. I can't treat both of my girls this exactly, although I treat them the same. I've got to be careful on how I say certain things to this one or to that one. You got to balance it. I mean, the other day there was one was came in, one came around and was like, "Ah!" She really had to let loose on what she thought of her sister. And I just sit attentively and say, yes, I understand, and just let her, because it's better to let it out. And then the other one is like, yeah, and it's not fair. And you said you didn't say about this or about that. I said, listen, your sister needed to out it, and the two of you are big enough to sort it out now for yourself. So they went on to talk together, and that was it. 5 minutes later, everything was fine.
And
It,
how is it any different in within the workplace?
that's exactly the same, and that's why sometimes, if you are a big leader, you if you direct them in a direction of resolving it,
Hmm.
that's it. Go in another room and resolve it.
I'm going to say something very, very controversial.
Okay, then go.
I have locked people in a room, not locked, but I have put people I've managed in the past in a room and said, okay, you've got 45 minutes or whatever. I can't remember the time. I want you to sort it out. And they had no other choice. So sitting in that room,
Yeah.
talking to each other, resolved the problem. And what was really interesting was for weeks after that, every time I saw them, they kept saying, "We're all right. We're happy with each other." I was like,
But that's it. Identical to kids, isn't it?
yeah.
Um,
So I loved it that you said naturally we learn, and if we make mistakes, it's part of the learning, right?
it is. It is because remember you. Also, the other thing we need to bear in mind is life is not a big exam.
Mm.
We don't. We can't fail. We really can't fail.
We can
I
learn.
mean, we we it all depends on how you look at everything. I don't see I fail. I just learn.
Mm. Me
And as
too.
long and as long as you don't make the same mistakes, then you'll be fine. But sometimes again, you talked about stars, and the stars are so important. I'm one who believe, honestly, the stars there. And if you believe in different um, life plateaus, and I love talking about that because sometimes we come to learn more, and you are continually stuck back in the same area to keep learning and keep learning. So I don't know in which life cycle you are, but I'm sure you're in life 9.
I don't know. I'll have to research it, but I can tell you that.
I know I'm in 7, that's for sure. But we all
Okay.
have to come back and learn, but just for the good. But like you said, the putting people in a room and just communicate back. Sometimes it doesn't really need a bigger leader to instigate that, because if you have policies in place at work, you would say, okay, we're all grown up people. You have to sort it out between yourselves first
Mm,
before you go then to a level higher.
mm.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I guess it's very much dependent on the culture within that business. And I think if you were someone in charge in that organization, you would definitely be setting that culture. But remember, like sometimes we can end up in workplaces where we've had no say
Yeah.
or influence on the culture and we have inherited something. So in lots of jobs, I've inherited cultures where it's been challenging because you have to change those cultures. And I think that leaders don't necessarily realize sometimes that they can, and
Yeah.
they don't even realize the position they're in and how much of the way a business operates. There's a huge influence from them in terms of the cultural. For example, I know that within any sort of organization I've always worked, inclusivity has been a huge cultural influence from me because I don't see being inclusive as anything to do with Islam or any. I see it as a value. Maybe because growing up I didn't feel valued, or
Mhm.
maybe because so many times I wasn't included for several reasons. But that's the reason why, if you think back to what my example I shared earlier, if my cousin says at the age of 3, I'm looking out for people that are begging
Yeah.
and trying to help them, then that is part of my nature. You
Yeah.
know, you can't run away from your nature. What you can do is something that I do with my leadership program, because I only developed that because there was a huge push from people saying, okay, Munwara, how do you do what you do? So
Yeah.
I decided to put everything in a course. And the first module is around that. You know, it's learning about yourself. And that for me was a game changer a few years back when I became a lot more self aware. But self awareness is not something you switch off,
No.
it's constant. It's
Instant.
constant. If I become more aware of myself and who I am, then I can control my actions and behavior around other people, right? Because we don't have control over other people's actions, but we have control of our own,
Your
right?
own. Most definitely. No,
So
that.
that for me, like, you know, ticks, big tick when you said that, because awareness makes all the difference, I think, personally.
Yeah.
And what you said about, you know, the way you parent. So I'm going to ask you a question, right? This is very, very common, but like, why do you think if women can naturally parent, right? There's no perfect way of anything.
Mhm.
Why are so many women afraid of the leadership responsibility or the leadership role?
Maybe because, well, I think it's the same, isn't it? Because then it's the lack of confidence, and of course, maybe at ages being put down,
Mm,
or you've been told you can't do it, or you may sometimes it's maybe you don't feel you've got that the education behind you. So we then start disbelieving and thinking we cannot be a leader,
mm,
and we forget and how good we are at parenting.
mm.
You know, because that's a bit we miss, isn't it? Because we say, okay, if I mean we me and you know, if I can parent, run any project.
You can manage, you can lead, you can coordinate anything.
That's it. So so the fear of, you know, having my children, it was like it just it's a project, isn't it? But it's a beautiful project because it's again a different project. But for to me, the the kid project, I mean, people think, okay, yes, kids are for there for life. Yeah, they are with you for life. But there is a time where you let them go. And only just recently I was talking to someone and I said, remember you know, we are the arrow and they are the no, they are the arrow and we are the bow. But and that is a project as well. You've got a beginning and you've got an end and you go and it's that I just find so fascinating. But you can, so if you can lead that, I think women who want to step into leadership need just need that encouragement because it is there. If you can, if you as women, you know, wherever you are in the world as women, you have, you know, you lead in your household, you lead
Exactly.
in in the activities for your children, you lead, you organize, you do so much. Therefore you have a voice and you can lead in anything, in any passion you have.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's so interesting you say that about, because I feel like, you know, any woman I think naturally can lead.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like society just makes it so hard for us.
Because it's pushed down.
Mm. And also, like, what examples are there of leadership out there? Somebody said to me, reached out to me recently and said, "Oh, Munwara, like when I look, you look like the only person who looks like me." And then this is why I started this Young Inspirers program, because I wasn't meant to. that wasn't part of my plan. But I realized like it's so hard to encourage people of my level, my age, like, that where they perhaps it's like that thing you can't even take the horse to water, let alone make it drink, right? But I thought, okay, if I work with younger people
Hmm.
like me and I am there, I'm not doing anything. They're organizing everything, they're making the decisions. I'm just there as a comfort blanket, and they see me as a role model. And I am seeing them like, I'm seeing untold potential, and obviously that's making me glow
Yeah,
inside.
of
But
course.
like, then that next generation, maybe sometimes we can't work on this generation, we need to work on the next one.
Tipped it. You got it. You just hit it, because that is where it is. And there's a lot of changes we've asked for, and we're begging for, but we're not there. And the generation just need to change. It might take another 20 years, but you know wait, and it will happen slowly. And we get better diversity, inclusion, and everything. And we may not I personally believe we don't really understand our younger generation. We want to, but we can't fully understand, because they've come from a different era.
Mm.
And they have, I mean, I remember once a parent saying like, oh my god, I need to talk about this with my child and talk to them about that and this. And I said, listen, they know much more than you think.
Yeah.
They're very clever. They're clever, but also very. They understand what's happening in the world, and they're seeing it with such a different picture. So the changes we in our lifetime, at our age, are looking for is going to happen with them.
But it upsets me. I'll tell you what really gets to me is when I see a lot of young people, because I do think they have the answers,
Mhm.
but they're used. Let's consult young people and give them a voice. But like, where are the opportunities? Why are you not giving them the jobs?
Yeah.
Why are you not giving them the chance to learn? Like, give them a project, give them things to do,
Mhm.
because that's how you elevate people into leadership. You don't elevate people by just giving them a voice.
No.
And that really, really like annoys me, because I've been in so many situations where you hear, oh, they're holding this big forum and we need 20 young people. We'll give them all a £10 voucher each.
Yeah.
And what, use their brain to
No.
find the answers?
No. No. But what could be a great idea is having more young children on the forefront, having conversations like this.
Mm,
Really
mm,
encourage them. But again, that is something we want. But what we forget is it's coming. It will come, and we are too impatient.
mm.
We can't. Things will happen, and sometimes we can't just make it happen like that. And what we want is maybe not what they want. You've got to think of that as well.
I think they need to be more involved in making those changes
Yeah.
that they want, not necessarily we
Mhm.
employ or we take them on board and tell them what to do,
Yeah.
but more like see what they come up with, because their ideas are going to be so much more, like up and coming. It's going to be their lives. It's not going to be our lives. It's going to
No.
be their lives.
No. We just keep it all clean and simple, and keep the road open for them. That's our job.
Yeah, I would love to know from young people. I mean, the seven that I'm working with at the
Yeah.
moment, it's not a funded project, and they are only part of it because they want to make that difference. And what will interest you and maybe surprise you is 5 out of 7 of those young girls said their motivation and their reason for getting involved is to learn how to fundraise.
Fantastic. It's very,
And I'm like, oh, that's a way to elevate them, because fundraising is a sought after skill
yeah,
and strength. If I could encourage them to come into fundraising, wouldn't that be amazing?
yeah. But that's it, isn't it? It's becoming a mentor to them.
Hmm.
That's what they need. That's really, and I can see that happening now, because I can see that with my own kids, especially with the group you know of your young stars. Really look
Mhm.
to that evening, 17th of April, isn't it?
No, no, 29th.
29th of April. Yeah, it's lovely to see, but it's mentoring, is knowing that you're just there giving them a push or a direction, or guide them to the areas they want to be. So yeah, let's just listen more to youngsters.
And that's part of the reason why, like, I saw so many coaching programs out there. And for me, coaching wasn't, I didn't feel it was just coaching. It had to be a little bit more. And mentoring, I find that people are able to do everything themselves, but knowing that somebody has their back gives them that comfort. And
Oh
also, a mentor shares tools. Like, you've been a mentor for your daughters, but
yeah,
we don't realize until our 50s and our 60s
yeah,
what amazing stuff we did as parents.
yeah. True, true, and
Mhm.
it only happens when they can truly speak from experience. That's why we don't know when they're too young. We learn when they're, and but we did the same to our parents.
I think we're also, as a nation, not very good at giving feedback.
No,
And I say this because leadership, you grow when you get like feedback, and most people struggle with feedback or giving it because they worry about how it affects other people's emotions. But actually, growth cannot happen until you get
yeah,
feedback. I remember asking my children for feedback, and my son said, "No, mom, no way, because if I told you, that would hurt you, and I don't want to hurt you." And I said, "You don't know what stuff I'm made of." I said to him, "Just tell me, Marif, because you don't know. Like, I'm strong. I can take it. Just give it to me, because I would rather know and learn from it than not be told." And then I'm thinking of the leadership role, right? Within a business,
yeah,
if managers cannot be like leaders and they cannot give honest feedback, they hamper the growth of the staff member they manage,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And likewise, that relationship between you and the person that you line manage is a mentoring relationship. It
That's it.
can be. If
Yeah.
you have that, if you set that kind of culture within an organization, it can be a mentoring role because you grow together.
But
They can give
remember,
you feedback, right?
yes, but remember, there's a lot of leaders out there. They're too afraid someone else might take their job. So you see, so if you,
That's because they're not self aware.
there you
They
go.
don't know their own strength.
They don't have, or they don't have the confidence to feel there's much more and a bigger world out there for themselves.
Mm, mm,
Because mentoring is again being doing it selflessly, and like you said, it's really guiding and helping someone and empowering them to whichever goal they want to go to.
mm,
It's beautiful. It's I mean, I love it. I remember I had a lady with that. Remember, there was a lady called, I can't remember her name, but a long, long time ago in retail. And I was one of the first companies to start spending lots of time with my employees. I made sure that we used to go away for 2 hours and really go into a proper introduction, or their performance reviews, but really positively and good feedback. And one girl was like, are you not afraid I'm going to take your job? I said,
mm.
no, go for it. There's always another door opens for me. And she did, which was lovely. It's nice to see them. But if you can lead like that, where you don't fear for your own,
Mm.
then you can let others grow. And that's how I grow my kids.
Well, that there's a joy what you just said about your kids, and if you're within a work environment, surely, like I know for me, my greatest joy is seeing the people I manage go ahead of me, because nothing like, because the more they succeed is more your success, isn't it?
But that's it. It's beautiful because it's like, wow. I remember one of the, I hired a cleaner for our company once. The girl walked in and she goes, "Oh, have you got any jobs?" And I said, "Well, at the moment, only a cleaning job." Yeah. And the lady was really good and she was very bubbly and she was absolutely gorgeous. And we would always chat about after. And then one day she said, "Oh, I saw this advertisement that you're looking for a person to work in the shop." I said, "Yeah, do you want to apply for it?" She goes, "Are you sure I can do that?" I said, "Of course you can. Come on, let's, give," and just encouraged her to do it. And you know what? 2, 3 years later, she was managing the store.
Fantastic.
It was lovely. It's like you got to give those chances.
And I love that you actually put that focus on people not getting the empowerment, people not getting the support at the right time, especially women, to take on those leadership roles.
Yeah,
Mentoring is so important, but I think sometimes it's like your colleagues as well. Like I've been in jobs where I've had terrible managers, but like my colleagues have really boosted me
yeah,
and helped me grow.
mm,
So
true. Yeah, same here. Same here. Or you are the one who's boosting your colleagues, and but
mm.
again, it's one team, isn't it? And it's what me and you talk a lot about collaboration. And collaboration is so powerful.
And
And
that's the relationship of a mentor and a mentee. It's a collaborative one because while the mentee is being supported, the mentor is growing too.
that's it. You both grow. And thank you for that because I'm doing a speech on Thursday night, and I'm going to talk about the mentoring program. So yes, that is one bit I'll add into it.
You both grow. Nobody who mentors another person and supports their growth ever not,
Not grow.
yeah, exactly, or not be affected by it, because you do. Because the moment you realize what you have achieved, you grow as well. And remember, one of the things I do, I'm a bit greedy like that, is I do ask my mentees for feedback.
Yeah, fantastic. You should.
It's always nice to get feedback, and I think that's where our growth happens as well. And it's part of the whole self-awareness thing,
Yeah.
isn't it? Because you may think you know it,
But
but
but the beauty of feedback is to give feedback how you can do things differently the next time. It's not about what you did wrong or what you said wrong. It's like, well, how would it be better when you are in the same situation?
yeah, exactly, because we see things from different lenses, don't we?
Yeah, and again, you might you might do 20 presentations or even your courses.
Mm,
Remember, you might do the same course, but every time you get that feedback, it's slightly different because you as a person are different to how you deliver it
mm.
every time because you take that little bit in of the last time. So
My delivery is always different because I feel like it's important to personalize. If you believe people are unique, you have to personalize. You can't manage two staff members in exactly the same way because their needs are going to be different.
no, that's it.
And yeah, listen, it's been wonderful talking to you. We've been talking for more than an hour. Any
Let's
last thing you want to add about culture? Because
go.
we've gone all over the place, but I think everything that we've discussed is part and parcel of culture and identity. So, do you want to add anything?
Add more to culture. Well,
Any last words, or how can people get hold of you, Gula?
oh yeah. Let people get hold of me via LinkedIn, please. Guler Cortis. If you see my name there, it's the only person on LinkedIn. So Guler Cortis, I see you there. I love. I mean, I love that conversation. Thank you so much, Momara. It was really nice.
It was wonderful to have you, Gula. I loved every minute. And I would say to anybody who's looking to connect with the most interesting person and the most kindest human being you can come across, Smiley here, Gula herself, please connect with her via LinkedIn and have a wonderful evening, afternoon, morning, whatever. Take care. Bye.